Shanti. My name is Sister Sharona, and there's almost a feeling to thank you for coming, even though I know it's regular class and everybody will be taking benefit. But I guess the feeling of thanks comes from the original intention of this morning's class. And that is, the other day, some of us were sharing personal experiences and stories of the Dadis. And there was a thought that as much as we learn through the example of the Dadis, and there's such deep inspiration for self-transformation, watching them, hearing the stories of other people's experiences also provide that same inspiration for transformation and excitement about greatness and the power of greatness. So before some of those who would have known the Dadis quite well start leaving for their respective countries, there was the thought to sit together and really share some of these stories. Not just for the benefit that I just described, which we're all going to enjoy, but also because this year and next year there are going to be celebrations, many celebrations. The 70th anniversary of the Yagya, and also Dadi's 90th anniversary. So it was thought that this material, recorded both audio and visual, could possibly provide useful material. So in that respect, we're all together going to be doing a kind of service, because after we listen to the stories of these souls, I'm going to be opening it up. That's what this chair is for. If any of you are remembering a particularly amazing educational experience of Dadi, you will also be welcome to come and share that. So, with that, a quick introduction to our panelists. Well, actually, maybe they can just give their own introduction as they share their story. Your name, what country are you serving in, and possibly how long have you known Dadi? And then just to share one or two stories, first of all, just to start a first round, depending on how long your story is, and we'll take it from there. Wadiben, you want to start? Your mic is there.
Good morning. Oops, are we on? Yes, good morning. Om Shanti. I've known Dadi for 30 years. Well, a couple of months from now, it will have been 30 years. And I lived with her for my first few years in Gyan as well, by some stroke of fate. And I think maybe on reflection, it was because Baba knew that unless I had a soul of that caliber very, very close to me, I maybe wouldn't have survived. And so I realized that now coming up to, I'm in my mid-50s, which was the age that Dadi was. Dadi was 58 years old when she came to London. That was in 1974. And she, before coming at that time in India, Dadi was unwell. She had always been unwell. She was known for her state of bad health. But I don't know, I know that many of you here are relatively new, and you may not know that in those days, Dadi Janki had had a vision, this recurring vision, and it was that she had Baba in between her two hands like this, and that she was carrying him all the way around the world, saying, "See, this is Baba." And on the strength of this vision, and despite her ill health, she agreed to go to London. And in fact, at one point, they were even humoring her and saying, yes, we'll get a passport for you, we'll get a passport for you. And ultimately she got her passport. And so with Baba pulling, Sister Jenti pulling, Sister Mohini pulling, I for one am very thankful that she arrived in London. And I don't know if it is because of the BK presence in London during the Confluence Age that set up the scene for the historical connection between Bharat and England for the rest of the Kalpa. Many stories, many situations with Daddy. I was remembering how, maybe just a few short things. One, it always struck me how she understood hearts. She didn't have to have your introduction, she didn't have to know anything about you, but as soon as she would meet you, somehow it was like as if she just penetrated everything and went straight to your heart. There was a journalist had come to interview her, this again is going back to the late 70s or early 80s, and she was explaining some of the things of Gyan to him, and he said, well, how can you prove that this is the truth? And Daddy just came back with, truth doesn't have to be proven, it only has to be presented. I was also remembering how, again, her heightened aspirations for all of us, in how she could see to the end of us in terms of our possibilities, even before we had hardly taken our second step on the path. And two incidents I remember, and these may be two people that whom you know. One was Brother Neville from Oxford, from the retreat center. And when he came to Baba, first again to do an interview, and he took the course, and he seemed to like it, but there was still a big problem for him because he came from a scientific background. And he really wasn't the type of student that we were used to having in London. He was a little bit more sophisticated, he was a professional. And he had barely finished his course, and I was standing there with Daddy, and she said to him, you can start coming at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking, Daddy, how can you say that to him? And he just nodded his head and said, yes, I can do that. And so from that day, he started coming at 4 o'clock in the morning. And a similar thing with Brother Anthony. He recollects the story a little differently. But it was the second day of his lesson, and he had come out of the classroom. This was in Tennyson Road, and I was standing next to Daddy. Daddy knew it was a new student, and Anthony walked out, and Daddy was standing there, and beside her, she had her arms folded. She looked up at him, and she said, are you a Brahmin? And I hit her like this, Daddy. And Anthony says, yes, I think so. Second day. And then there was another situation, and it was a sister from Germany. Again, she had been with Baba from she was a teenager, and I mean, she must be with Baba now at least probably getting to 30 years. But she was telling me about a long, convoluted situation wherein Daddy had told her to go back to her own town in Germany, and she really didn't want to do that. And Daddy was very insistent, and she was really upset with Daddy, you know, to the point of even telling Daddy off. But anyway, because, you know, she saw herself as somewhat surrendered, she agreed, but still complaining about it. And she was hardly there 3 weeks. This is where her parents were. And her father, who had never been ill, became grievously ill and left the body. And she was so thankful to Daddy that she had been there. Otherwise, she was probably going to have been in America or somewhere else. And so after she'd been sharing this story with me, we were here in Madhaban, and I asked Daddy, you know, having seen her operate for so many years, and whether it was you were buying property, you were moving, if it was Lokic situations or spiritual situations, that Daddy always had an answer for you, and every time the answer was correct. And so I asked her, how do you do that? And she says, when somebody comes to me and they have a situation and they tell me what the situation is, she said, I instantly go to Baba. And if I don't get a touching from Baba, then I say to them, you come back and see me in 2 days' time. And if they come back and see me in 2 days' time, I remember Baba again, and I still don't get a touching. I say, you come back and see me in 3 days' time. And she says, unless and until I get that touching from Baba, then I won't tell them, I won't give them advice, I won't tell them what to do. So that's just one final thing. It's not so much a story, but again, in the early days, when and it's funny now the fact that we're looking at Daddy's history when at that time we would have looked at the history of the yajna, but Daddy now, since she's been in the West. But in those days we used to say, Daddy Kamarka, DDG. I don't know how many of you here knew Didi Manmohini. She, along with Daddy Kamarka, was the joint administrative head, not Daddy Janki, and Daddy Janki, of course, in the West. And we used to say, and I don't know, was it Shakespeare or who it was that came up with that thing, but there are those who are born great. And so we applied that to Didi, because she had been like that from the beginning of the yajna. And there are those on whom greatness is thrust upon. And that was Daddy Kamarka, because she, at 46 years of age, as a result of Baba leaving the body, became the head of the institution. So greatness thrust upon her. And then there are those who, by their own efforts, become great. And that, for us, is Daddy Janki.
I think that's why she's our hero. And we learn so much from her, because we look at her and this is her lesson to us. She says, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's the fire she lights in us. Wadi, I know you're going to be leaving at about 12 or 12:30, so we're really fortunate that you gave us this time. Can you stay? Okay, good. All right. Pratibha? Yes, great.
Om Shanti. I'm Sister Pratibha from Africa. I'm based in Kenya, Nairobi, and I've known the Dadis since past 32 years. I know I was very young when I came to Baba, but I still have lovely memories. I was in my teenage that time. And I met Dadi Janki first. I was just 3 days old in knowledge, just 3 days. And after London, she came straight to Zambia, to Lusaka. That's where my Lokik and spiritual birth is. And she was staying with us because we didn't have a center that time. So she was with our Lokik family. And it was like, having Dadi fully to our own self, sort of. We could take the most benefit. And not only on a very sort of spiritual level, but we could experience Dadi from her day-to-day life, her lifestyle, her daily routine, and all that. And I'll just start with a very sort of touching experience I had with Dadi Janki, is that maybe the whole world admires Dadi Janki in a very different level, her spiritual ability, her closeness to Baba, what she has achieved. But if we go back completely to a very sort of, physical level, I've seen the modesty and the humility in Dadi a lot. And simplicity, extreme simplicity.
Can you give a story?
Yes. And I remember the first time when she came, she did not tell our Lokiks that they cook their food themselves, because we were not in Dharna yet. We were just 3 days old. And she was very sweet. She said, today I am going to make something for all of you and share with you. And she made this very beautiful halwa. And of course, after a year, we were in full principles and we were visiting London, Tennyson Road. And still she was making breakfast for us, And what really touched my heart was after breakfast, she served breakfast to us, but after that she was wanting to wash the plates for us. And I quickly took the plates away from her and said, no, Dadi, that I will do it. And so can you imagine, we saw Dadi from that stage. And that was the time it touched my heart so much that even if I become a sister or the senior, so-called, whatever it is, but I have to carry on doing that karma also. It's very important in my day-to-day life. The other thing is that Dadi is so positive in any situation. I was sharing with the NCOs the other evening, but I would also like to repeat here that, you know, she will not get disheartened in any situation whatsoever. And she will create something so positive, and not only create positive, but she has a vision for it, you know, and her vision then it comes true also. And I was sharing that in the 80s, mid-80s, I was traveling with Dadi Janki. I had the opportunity to travel with her to Oxford. And in the car, it was Brother Ramesh from Bombay, and myself, and Sister Jayanti and Dadi Janki, and the brother who was driving us to Oxford, Brother Andrew.
There was no retreat center at that time.
No, yeah. It was in the 80s, 85 to be very precise, and we didn't have the retreat center there, nothing. There was no center there. We were going for a program which Dadi told us in the car, that we are going for the inauguration of the Oxford Center. And this was the first time Dadi was going to Oxford. I was also going first time. And Dadi was asking Sister Jayanti, you know, that what is Oxford known for? And Sister Jayanti said the universities. Oxford has the best universities in sort of the world, most of the best universities in the world. And Dadi said, oh, okay. And you know, she just registers. She doesn't just start commenting or sharing anything. And then she said, okay, today we are going to encourage the instrument soul, and we are all going to share in the program. Now, the first instinct when somebody tells you you're going for an inauguration of a center, what comes to your mind, you know? And so, of course, it's a program, a few hundred people are sitting around somewhere and all that. But when we arrived, it was a tiny little house. It was very small. And of course, one soul was sitting there. One sister was there. That was the public, the instrument brother, and then 5 of us, you know. And I said, all 5 of us are supposed to share. So we were ready. We were going to share. But to who? To one soul, one public. Anyway, when, you know, we waited for this others to join us, but nobody came, only one was there. So Dadi was very, very positive. And she was trying to bring that positiveness into us also. And she says, even if it is only one soul, you are all going to share. Don't think that because there is only one soul, you will cut short your sharing or nothing like that. Or I will just share, nothing like that. We are all going to share. And we all shared. But then when she started sharing, you know, there was so much enthusiasm in her. And I could feel the energy till today, because I saw the outcome of what she was sharing. And she said, Jayanti was just telling me that Oxford is very well known for its universities in the Lokik world. And I can see that Baba's going to have a spiritual university in Oxford, a very special one, and students from around the world are going to come to this university. And this is Baba's very first child of that university in Oxford, that one, you know, soul. I don't even know who that soul was, to be very honest. So, you know, Dadi was very positive. Of course, we left Oxford and we came back. But in '93, when we got the retreat center, and when I arrived there, and I shared this, you know, of course, at that point, I think Dadi Janki did not remember. But when I was sharing, you know, because I was so touched when I saw the retreat center, look at her vision. You know, it's such a royal, spiritual university, which is one of the best in the world. And she had that vision when we were in that tiny little center, so positive. Exactly, you know. So I mean, so these are just very few stories which has touched my heart and soul. And of course there are more. I hope I get another chance.
Yes.
Om Shanti. I'm Sister Luciana from Brazil. I'm coming to my 27th year in Guyana. And the first time I met Daddy Yankee, it was after I was around 2 years in Guyana, because my first year I didn't come to Madhuban. But yes, there was that regular contact through, at that time, phone and letter. And a couple of stories of my connection with Daddy, something that, according to my personality, I'm very practical, very down to earth. So it seemed that Daddy knew how she had to relate with me. If she would come just with spiritual theory, it would not really reach me. She had to be very mundane sometimes so that I could grasp some of her teachings and could touch my heart. So just to take this example that Pratibha was saying about few souls, my first time in London, I was staying with Sister Wadji in Tennyson Road. And Daddy by that time was living in Baba Bhavan with Sister Genti and a few others. And at the same time that I was in London, 3 other sisters from Australia were there. And we were going to stay for a couple of days, something like almost a month in London, before coming to Madhuban. And so Daddy, Genti Ben, and Sister Sudesh, who was also full-time in London at that time, they were supposed to train us to be in centers. So just 4 of us having Daddy Yankee, Sister Genti, and Sister Sudesh, all for ourselves, from morning till evening, giving us the training. And the training was absolutely not about Gyan, because we were supposed to already to have taken the course beforehand in our countries, but the training was how to live in the center and how to be a perfect Brahma Kumari. And things that Daddy Yankee would emphasize were so practical, so down to earth, something like, you know, you would not expect of such a big sage like she is. Like, for instance, she would tell us that if you are cooking and any stain from the pot comes to your cloth, you have failed. Because someone who cooks in Baba's remembrance should come to the kitchen with the clean white cloth and leave the kitchen in the same clean manner, with no stain in the cloth or around the kitchen and so on. So can you imagine 4 of us very young in bodies, we were in our 20s at that time, and also in Gyan, having that attention. Then she would say that when we would be with our saris, we could wear our saris more than once. And the method to do that was to fold the sari and put under the pillow so that the sari would stretch up, you know, and you could wear it again. So many details she taught us that, I mean, I don't imagine that nowadays the orientation or whatever the preparation for souls to move into the centers would include all that. Just coming to other details like this, once here in Madhuban, and we were also very young in Gyan, we used to stay in the training session around the Tower of Peace. And I was with Morni from Hong Kong in the same room. And it was about 10 o'clock in the night, and we saw that Daddy's light was on, Daddy's room in Indraprasth. And so Morni and myself, we thought, okay, let's go and say goodbye, good night to Daddy. And so we went to her room, and there were 2 Indian sisters there, and now I don't remember who they were. But Daddy received us with so much love and care and gave us very long dristi. And then she said something, and I'll explain what I mean afterwards for no one to feel kind of regret that I might not have that. Daddy looked at both of us and said, Morni, Luciana, do you realize how fortunate you are because Daddy knows your names? And what I mean by that is that first it was as if she was visualizing how the Brahmin family would grow. But what I see about Daddy is that she loves that souls come close to her. Many times young Brahmins, they feel that Daddy is so busy, Daddy is so great, there are so many more seniors than them. So they feel sometimes not that courage or that inspiration to come that close. In fact, it's just maybe a warning or some invitation for all of you that Daddy really appreciates when new souls, old souls, come to say good morning to her, good night to her, or come close to her whenever she's walking around. And so it's a way to make us feel that Daddy, though she's such a high being, she's a human being. And I mean, she's our mother, our sister, senior sister. So of course she likes that closeness. And I have so many stories, but just one last story to share with you before passing to Francois. I was, I think, in my second visit in Madhuban, and Baba at that time used to come at each second day. And so, you know, when I came to Baba, I was not really having that intention to stay. I liked everything, I liked the knowledge, but you know, to commit my life to be a nun, it was not what was in my plan. So I stayed and I helped because there was no one else to help. But I was ready to give the responsibility to someone else as soon they appeared. So in Madhuban, Daddy, Brother Ken, was by my side also, and I told Daddy, Daddy, I don't think that I want to have this responsibility, to be responsible for such a big service in a country. And Daddy just looked at me and she replied, she said, well, if you don't think that you can manage it, next time Baba comes, you tell him and ask him if he gives permission to you not to be the responsible for Brazil anymore. Of course, I didn't have any courage to come to Baba and say that. But what I realized is that, first of all, one of the qualities of Daddy Janki that I appreciate the most, she's such a big business woman. You know, she knows how to be very yuked, so that she brings situations so that she makes you to reflect that that role was not given by Daddy Janki, or it was not given by chance. It was not given to me because there was no other one. She made me realize that I was the one selected by Baba to have that role, to be in that position. So to say anything to Baba, it was just like to go against drama and my fortune. So just simple words from Daddy, but so many realizations they brought to me at that moment. Om Shanti.
Just before Francois starts, I'm going to interject another story which follows along that line. We were hearing things that Daddy said, which were so educational, but I was sharing with you all the story of something Daddy taught me by not speaking at all. It was her absence of anything she was saying. We were in Oxford, and we were supposed to go to London, and there were 3 of us who were being invited to ride with Daddy. And there was a kind of van that had been ready for us. And Daddy made as if to open the front door and get into the front seat. Or sorry, the back door, and get into the back seat. And I immediately felt that Daddy was doing that because she felt that she should be on service and sit with us and be with us. And I wanted her to be free of that, to relax a bit, to have some silence time if she wanted that. So I reached for the front door handle and I said, Daddy, you sit in front. And Daddy looked at me kind of like that and paused. And I insisted. I said, no, Daddy, please, you sit in front. Because front seat was also a little bit more space and more royal. Without another word, Daddy just got into the front seat, you know, And I shut the door. We got in the back. Within 5 minutes of driving, I understood what a big mistake I had made. The whole rest of the trip, 1 hour, Daddy had to turn her head like this to talk to us. And she continued talking to us. Whole time stretched like this. And then I also came to learn that Daddy never likes to sit in the front seat because it makes her car sick. But the greatness of this soul and the dedication she had to her every breath being a teaching through her own demonstration, I learned right then and there never, ever, ever again to say anything, to tell Daddy ever again what to do. Because not only did she do what I wanted her to do, but she didn't even try to teach me through words. Not to try to tell seniors what to do. It's a very humbling lesson and a lesson in the power of humility.
Gentil. My name is François, and I'm serving in France. I'm now 28 years in Guyana, but I took Guyana in Australia and New Zealand, so I spent 1 year over there. And the only contact I had with Daddy Junkie was through her classes. And I enjoyed the classes much more than the Murlis at that time. And I remember I was cutting out all the pieces of the Murli and stick them in my notebook and make arrangements. I didn't thought at that time that I will meet that person one day. I knew I will go to India, but for me, that junkie was to demystify the person. I never thought I will meet her. And now I know not only I met her, but we became friends. We danced together, but also was a person who had challenged a lot. We challenged a lot together. We had a lot of sweet arguments. So I think that's a proof that you have a good friend. And I remember the first time she came to France. We had a retreat, South France. And a brother had a friend, was a big businessman, rich person. He had South France, a huge castle, beautiful. And he says, why you don't have your retreat in my castle? And Hubert Bay was so happy, he said, yes, of course, but it's Daddy Junkie coming. And we talked to him who this person is, spiritual person, and he tried to make up his mind. And Daddy was landing at the Bordeaux center, at Bordeaux airport. So he says, let's go and pick her up. We're quite a few people, so we need 3 cars. I say, yes. So he says, anyway, I have 5. So I think we should take the Oldsmobile, the Jaguar, and the Rolls-Royce to pick up Daddy. I say, I'm not sure if that's really what Daddy wants, But I don't mind if we take her with the Rolls-Royce. That looks good, looks royal. So we went to the airport, and everything went well, and Daddy sat in a Rolls-Royce. We followed with a Jaguar, and it was a huge, I would say, welcome. But once we got in the garden of the castle, the man went out. He put out the French flag here, like Monsieur le Maire, put his French flag, and he became so official, because so happy to
He became what?
Official.
Official.
Very official. Mm-hmm. And the car was quite okay, but suddenly when we were in his land, in his territory, so he gathered all of us on the lawn, and we had the mic, everything was ready there. He put his the French flag, and he started to give an official speech, to all of us and to Daddy, and to welcome her like I think the French president can do, And we laughed for a short time, and then he became extremely serious, and Daddy went to him, start replying to him slowly.
Started what?
She replied to him
Replying.
nicely, and in 6 minutes, this man started dancing. He left his things, he was dancing. We couldn't believe how quick Daddy, we don't know what she did, you know, what she said, I don't know. But this man who was a businessman, rich, from this level of being so official, became a child, started dancing, and he was already, say 1,000 times thanks to Daddy to have such a high person on his property, you know? So for me, this was one of my first contact with Daddy, how much the power she has to move people, and to touch people, and we don't know how she does it. Now we have a new idea about it. And on the same retreat, because you were giving details how Daddy, how she operates. But for me, Daddy, to compare her, I would say she works like a hologram. You know the hologram? If you have only one little piece of the hologram, you can see the whole picture of the hologram. And that's how Daddy works. One detail, she knows everything.
Yeah.
And we had this retreat. Of course, we were young in Guyana, so arranged it as the best we can. And then we offer Bog. It seems that Bog is following me. So we offer Bog, and you know, Daddy often looks what is in the catteries. But she didn't look exactly in the catteries. Suddenly she took the curtain, you know, the cloth, and she wants to see the table. And the table were 3 cardboard boxes. We piled them in each other. So she could feel there was something here, you know. But she kept her stage. We laugh, but she said, that's all right. We do camping, that's okay. So we offer Bog. When it was finished, she asked me how this stage is built. I say, what she wants to know now. You know, I say, listen, it's wood, it's a stage, well done. And she wants to know more about it. I say, okay, let's go. And she found out the whole stage was built on canned food. You know, we found, because we didn't know how to make a high stage.
Canned foods.
And this guy had a huge store. And we found out there were canned food, that size, all the same height.
Cans of food, the same height made
there
the
was spaghetti, there were tomatoes and peas. And so we put them there, the plywood on the top. This was our stage.
And she saw it.
And how she found out? How did she find out that we had built the whole stage on canned food, you know? And the table for Bog was with cardboards. You know, that was for me the first time I saw Daddy, you know, picking up little things and seeing the whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I will give you different stories with my argument with Daddy.
I was asking how many daddies, but there are 2 significant incidents with 2 separate daddies that had directed my life in terms of managing people. One really happened to me in '89. I came to Baba as a professional, and so you have your low-kick way of running organizations or things, and as we say, this is not an organization, this is a family. So you carry with you all of the sophisticated things, but I think so. I made a few mistakes, and it was in 1989, I think, that I was in a sense, and that was the time when Daddy Comarca has been very active, even in foreign service, that she actually comes to our meetings, and I was told that I have to meet her, and I know why. I mean, I'm going to be, you know, my ears will be pulled, okay, in one way or another. And, you know, being called to the principal's office is bad enough. Being called to the president's office or university, the university president's office is, what would you feel, you know, being faced by Daddy Comarca? And I knew her name, but for us it is always Daddy Comarca. And So I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Becky from the Philippines, 23 years in Gian. And so I was anticipating what will happen, and I was looking for an office, but I was invited to the bedroom. Okay, and it was after 9 o'clock, I think, and it was after dinner. And I was invited to, and she was actually undressing in a way, remove her sari, and preparing for sleeping. And I know they're speaking in Hindi, and the one who knows the situation was telling her what I am supposed, why I was there, and what's the situation, how I should be dealt with. I think that's the vibration I'm getting. And Daddy said, okay, Daddy, like this. And and finally, she left, the other one, and the one who was telling all of the stories. And then she said, sit down, what is your name? Becky. Oh, Becky from Manila. Yeah, Daddy, son, and so forth. And how is service? She can speak in English. And I was telling her, and I felt good that she was actually listening to what I'm saying. Never asked anything about what the problem, never mentioned anything about what the situation, but she made me feel so comfortable. She was sitting on her bed. She let me sit on the foot of the bed, and she was really just listening and listening and listening. And then she said to me, Acha, says, you want Toli? I said, yes, Daddy. Okay, so I gave me Toli, and gave me a very nice drishti, and hugged me and said, okay, good night, now you know what to do. And for me, that's a very good example of how to handle misbehaving people. Okay. Well, what did I do? Okay. Well, according to the reports, I'm a very abusive teacher, okay, in a way. Well, those are the reports that, most of the students then were older than me. And, I stick to the rules, that they should not come to the kitchen, they should not open the refrigerator, there are many don'ts, and yet they're the ones who donated those things, all of these things. And, all this beginning, it's just a beginning kind of thing. And, that I'm politicizing, because I came from an activist, I march in the streets, so every time they want to create trouble, I said, I use Gyan to to go partisan and political and all of these things, and so it was kind of big at the time in a starting center. I think it's. But what my insight into this is the ability to give the trust, and I think that the mere fact that we are volunteers in a way, and we have the best intention. Maybe we don't have the best yuktis and yet we have the possibilities of really being a great resource for Baba. I think she balanced it and made me feel that I belong. And I think this is what Baba is keep on telling us, to make us belong, to make people belong to us so that they can begin to use their effort. And since then, I think, and then I began to figure out, maybe that's the way I should deal with discipline. And I began to set discipline in no more don'ts, no more thank you for not, bringing your slippers in, not anymore that. But I remove all of those, a little bit more relaxed in a way, and I said, okay, people are adults, they will understand. We have to learn through signals. And I think that's one aspect of Daddy Comarca, that to really belong, to really make people belong to you. In relation to that, Daddy Janki, and this did not happen to me, but I think there was a teachers' gathering, and one of the teachers who were with us were complaining, Daddy did not give me drishti, Daddy, you don't even, when you give me toli, you did not look at me, and all of these things. It was like, what do you like from Daddy? I think it was the last meeting of teachers. And Daddy said, is there anything you need from Daddy? And everyone was saying, and then this, I cannot remember who that was, but the teacher said, well, Daddy, I've been here for 2 weeks. You always give, longer drishti to them. You never, you never smiled at me. You never did this, And you know what Daddy said? Didn't say anything, just come. Just open her arms. And I think she was kind of hesitant. So what she did was stood up and actually held the teacher's hand and then allow her to come with her to her seat. And there was this footstool, and then they keep on hugging. And I said to myself, wow, when can I do that? You know, you get this daddy in front of you, you're all told, you know, of course you will focus on what you have taken from them rather than your complaint. And yet, you know, he was more answering her need, more than react, more than, you know, what should I think about it? Never created a waste thought. And I said to myself, maybe that should be an attitude of a server, that constantly anticipating what other people need rather than what you need. Because if it is your need, then you're asking. If it is you're anticipating their need, then you're really serving. And I think that's two examples of seniors who actually taught me in little ways how to really serve, to work with discipline and yet be relaxed about it, to trust people, and at the same time to really, really go beyond maybe the insult. And maybe she did not get insulted, that's what I'm saying. And sometimes when I complained to Daddy and said they don't trust me, and she would say, but you don't need trust, I trust you. You know? And I think this is where we have to learn from them in this way. So thank you very much.
In terms of this belonging, I remember an incident in London, very, very big program, one of our first. And afterwards, Daddy met with some of the dignitaries that came. And it was a Muslim gentleman in the small meeting room in our new Global Cooperation House. It was him, it was Daddy, and two other dignitaries, and he was of a very high standing too. And he had been very impressed by Daddy. It was the first time he'd come to Global Cooperation House and the first time he'd met Daddy. And he started the conversation when Daddy entered and sat, small room. He looked at her and he said, "This is the very first time that I'm sitting with a Hindu lady." And Daddy, not missing a beat, she said, "And you're still not sitting with a Hindu lady. I'm your sister. Om Shanti." And she said it with so much love, he was totally melted. Inspirations?
Okay, I think I'll share my feelings about Dadi Kumarka, that is Dadi Prakashmani.
Stories.
Yes, yes, story. Although the Dadis have got so much of responsibility, administration, a lot of things to take care about, but they notice little things, and we think it's very ordinary, but it actually touches your heart. This was my third trip to Madhuban in 1975, and as I told you, I was still young, and I came to Madhuban first, alone, and I was with Indian Kumaris, and of course I don't know a lot of things, laundry and washing and putting, on the lines. I didn't know all those things anyway, but I was learning. And what I did was, in 1 week's time, I lost all my socks. And it was Christmas time, it was December, because I never used to put clips and then the monkeys would just take it away, and I don't know where the socks were going. And then, of course, I would not ask anyone, I would not bother, but I will stay without socks. And I move around without socks. And it's winter, it's really cold. I do not know who told Dadi Kumarka, that is Dadi Prakashmani, Dadiji, that I am not wearing socks in cold weather. Well, I just revealed the main thing first, but really, Dadi called me, you know. And I was like wondering why Dadi was calling me, you know. And when I went to her room, she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." "Everything fine?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Why are you not wearing socks?" You know, and she already has had a few pair of socks next to her. So that means she called me for that, not that she noticed then only. And she said, "What happened?" And I told her, "Dadi, they're all lost," you know. And she goes, "Okay, take this and start using, but don't move around without socks." Now, can you just imagine, at that time, maybe we think it's completely ordinary, although I didn't feel that. I was very touched. That can you imagine Dadiji, who is an administrative head of the organization, and she has got so much responsibility, not that a little Kumari's socks, you know, but that also is so, you know, important to her. And I never forget that incident even till today. Same with Dadi Janki. In the 80s, I was helping in the London Centre, so I was there for a couple of months. And because, you know, everything was very different, I was staying at Tennyson Road, and Dadi and Chintiben and Sudeshbin were in Baba Bhavan, and I didn't know much how to do things. And we had Dadi Gulzar visiting, so we were just non-stop very busy. So again, connected to laundry. It was very cold, and I didn't know how to do my laundry so much because we are spoiled in Africa. And so I was just stacking, and I had a lot of pairs. So at one evening, I started washing outside, you know, and it was very, very cold. So one of the mothers saw me washing, you know, a lot of clothes, and she goes, "Let's put it in the washing machine and you can wash it." It's very different from nowadays, in those days. So she put it for me in the washing machine. And then, of course, another soul came, and that soul said, "This is not for personal washing, it's only for Baba's things. So you take the laundry out and do it yourself." And I was like, you know, swinging from one end to the other. I didn't know what to do. But anyway, I just did it, finished, that's the end. There was nothing in between or no ill feelings, nothing. I just did my laundry, I finished it up, and the only thing I mentioned was I didn't put it in the washing machine, this mother put it for me. Anyway, that's it. Next day, when I was in Baba Bhavan, I was just going up the stairs in Baba's room, and Dadi Janki was coming down. And she stopped me. I was just going up the stairs, and she was coming down, and just in between she stopped me and she gave me drishti and said, "Pratibha, what happened yesterday, I would like to say sorry on behalf of that soul." And I was like, "What happened, Dadi? I don't know what happened." And she goes, "Somebody told you not to use the washing machine?" And I was like, "No, Dadi." She says, "No, it is Baba's, it is yours. You can use it. You can do whatever you like. Please, I would like to say sorry." And I could not believe this. One, out of that, what I felt was, can you imagine, she has all the information. We think she's in another building, we're in another building, and she doesn't know what's happening, but she knows everything. She's a real king. And the other thing, the modesty, the humility, that she had to apologize on behalf of the other soul. And so we learn a lot from this little incidents, and, you know.
Thank you. I see Luciana's got another story, and while she's speaking, I see Jasu's in the audience, and I also see La, Anne, and Sasha. Maybe one of you, Walter also, maybe one of you are remembering a story and like to come up and take the seat so you can speak after Luciana.
Yeah, I would like to share some more recent story. Last year, in the month of September, Dadi Janki came to Brazil for the Call of the Time program. And then she had a private meeting with the businessman, which is a very, very big businessman that not just organized with us the whole program, but also sponsored the whole program, the tickets, the hotel, and everything. So she met him, and after talking to him for a few minutes, she gave him a golden ring that we know it's supposed to be just for teachers. And this man not even is a morning student. So why I'm sharing this incident? Because one of the things of Daddy that marvels me a lot is her ability to break the rules. Because she understands the principles behind everything. So whenever she follows or she does any action, she's not doing just out of a mechanic attitude. She's not doing just because it's the rule to do this or to do that. But she comes always with a fresh intention and fresh attitude facing whatever is there. And not just that she gave him the golden ring, but she also told him, you are Arjuna, and you are going to, be the first one to inspire so many others like yourself. And this man took so seriously, that we had then to explain to him who Arjuna was, and one of the brothers also that is here in Madhuban this time, who is from the same city of this businessman, had to find out a picture of Arjuna to give to him and everything. So just this aspect, sometimes we Brahmins, we follow things out of just because we were told, and not because we understand everything. And just one other incident, going back to the first years of Gyan. At that time, when I was very young, I was very, very slim, extremely slim. And there was another sister from Brazil called Goody, and we always used to come together, and she also was very, very slim. And in fact, she's that sister who is shown in all these images of Madhuban, that there is a kind of Kumari dancing on a rock. She's that one. And another one that was extremely slim was Gayatri from New York. So one day she called the three of us in her room to tell us that we were too slim. And she said, look, Daddy doesn't want you to become fat like many of the Indians, but a little bit more of flesh is necessary. Why? Because you three are young, and if you are too slim like that, the students are not going easily to consider you as a mother. So I understood that as a very unique way of willing us to be more like mature and, more accepting, I don't know what. But she took up this aspect of the physical body, which was interesting.
Sasha's joined us from Russia.
Shanti. I met Daddy for the first time 15 years ago, and I was quite young in knowledge, just a few months. So you can't understand much about who Daddy is at that stage, but still, even that experience was wonderful because, we were preparing to meet Daddy in St. Petersburg in Russia, and there were two driveways, and we didn't know from where Daddy would come. So, and I was mistaken at that time. So I was standing and waiting for Daddy at the wrong place, and Daddy went from another place, and so I had to run there, and I was out of breath, like this, breathing, and Daddy said, "What is your name?" And I said, "Sasha," and she could not understand properly, because I was out of breath. She said, "Harsha," which means happy, yes, happy, cheerful. I said, "No, Daddy, Sasha." She never listened anymore. "Harsha," okay, let it be. Baba is inspiring us to make effort, and drama is inspiring, but Daddy is also inspiring, and Daddy is, in my effort, she is always one step ahead of me, and as if she is giving some aims for me what to do. Next, although I didn't get a chance of staying with Daddy for a long time, but because Daddy loves Russia and she comes there almost every second year, and also in Madhuban because I'm translating. So sometimes I have a chance of just coming with someone from the Peace of Mind guests to Daddy and just to observe how Daddy answers their questions, what is her reaction. It's very interesting, but today I just want to tell about my personal, not about what Daddy says to others. That is also very interesting, but just what Daddy would say to me. From the second time I came to Madhuban, we were sitting, the Russian group was meeting Daddy, and we were sitting on the floor in front of Daddy, and when Daddy speaks, you know her manner. You just can't, stay without, So I was doing like this, without waiting for translation. And Daddy said, he knows Hindi. Okay, no problem. I didn't know Hindi. And then next year when we came and we sat in front of Daddy, he looked at me without saying anything. I didn't do like this. This time, she said, he knows Hindi. Next year when we came, Daddy looked at me and said, he knows Hindi. And, I felt that it's something wrong, that I have to do something now. It's becoming, dangerous. Deceiving seniors, it's not good. So when Daddy came to Russia, she again looked at me and said, let him come on the stage, he will translate. I said, Daddy, sorry, no, I can't, really, I can't. Daddy said, no, you can translate. I said, Daddy, no. Daddy looked at Brother Vijay, who is responsible for services in Russia, in Indian, he knows Hindi. So she told something to him. I could not understand exactly the words. I could understand just one word, Buddhu, which I knew already. So I didn't understand the other words. Maybe you know what it means. And she told him to translate, and I was sitting, and I felt that I understand everything. Really, I could do it. If I said yes at that time, I started learning Hindi. It's not some magic. I took some book, I started learning, but Daddy was speaking so slowly and so clearly that if I said yes, I would be able to translate at that time. And then Daddy was giving tolis to everyone, and I felt that through her eyes she was as if asking, so you see that you are a Buddha? That when Daddy says you to do something, don't you feel that you can do it? And also we, as translators, we have a wonderful privilege. After the class, I always rush down from there, from upstairs here, waiting for Daddy to say good morning or good evening, whatever, when Daddy comes from the stage, behind the stage, so you have a chance of just saying a few words, and Daddy all the time gives sort of blessings, one sentence, two sentences. So and for me it was very important what Daddy says once, that he said that just looking and saying that you are a wonderful deity who can feel bhav, bhavna and bhasha. Is that so? These three words. In Hindi they mean, motives, sort of intentions, feelings, and language. Not only language, but three things: bhav, bhavna, and bhasha. And for me it was very important in services. After that, I never forget that if you do any kind of service, you have to give all these three things together, not just speaking, but translating feelings and motives and intentions, everything. So that is just one of the stories regarding translation, but of course there are many other stories as well. That is wonderful, I love her. Thank you.
La has also joined us, and I'll ask Suman to come up as well.
Om Shanti. Lara from Thailand. I just have to recall my memory when I was first time in Madhuban. I came almost like a special permission, more like a guest. Didn't even follow the rules of knowing what is Brahmin life and who's Dadis and who is whose. And I came and met her first time right in front of Indrapat in Madhuban. When I first met her, she was looking at me, staring at me. Now you are back. And it's echoing in my ears all the time. You know, she remembered the soul. From how many births, I don't know. But that was my first encounter with her, and I still remember up to now. No matter what happened, it's just more like a life commitment that the river is at no return. Nothing else that you can do except be committed to the whole life. Then when I went back to Thailand, Baba sent me back to open the center. But the first things Daddy just offered that come to London, and that's my first overseas training, was in London. And then I was sent to Scandinavian trip with Sister Janti, and about to leave back home to open the center. And I took leave from Daddy right after Amrit Vela. And it was Sister Sudesh and Sister Janti, three Maharatis have strong influence in my life. And I took leave from her. I said, Daddy, I just felt like going to the battlefield. Going to the battlefield. You know, taking a shield, taking a sword, taking the armor, ready to go to open the center. And Daddy said, no, you are going to conquer Baba's heart. So whenever things happen in the life, there is service available for you to do, to create your fortune, something or another, as the people here and there. So I think it's echoing in my heart that there's nothing except Baba want to tell you. You have to conquer Baba's heart. You have to do something better. And that's Daddy's lesson for me. And actually, two Daddies always in my heart, and you know that we cannot live without two of them, and they always love each other. That's why, you know, whoever you love, no one can get in between. And once I came with a little gift for Daddy Janki, just cute, warm slipper. I said, Daddy, this is for you. He said, no, you go to Daddy Kumaka now and put it in her feet. You know, put it on her. He said, how sweet it is. So when I went back to Thailand, I remember the first time Daddy stepped in that land for the service, she was saying, La, now your dream has come true. But then oppositely for Daddy Kumaka, when she first, 2 years later I think, she first landed at the airport at the same place that I met two of them, Daddy Kumaka would say, La, thank you for making Daddy's dream come true. Such a blessing they gave to the land in the opposite way, but such love. So the last things I would like to share, I remember maybe 2 years ago, last year, Daddy was there. And the way she taught me how to really give importance to your thought, and said, Lord, tell Daddy now. You know, we were in the car, all of us, Sister Hansa, Sister Janti, and me and Daddy. You know, we were in the car and we were driving, passing many places. Daddy, want to know what is your thought now. Tell Daddy what you want. I said, Daddy, it just happened to pass one of the Buddhist, not a temple, but like a big place for mass meditation. I said, Daddy, this is my dream. In the future, Daddy have to come back and really conduct meditation for the whole Buddhist monk. And just, it will come true. It will be. So just take it as a blessing. I think she just taught me how to bless your own thoughts, and she just have to let us know whatever you think have to come through. And thanks again, you know, for letting me share this.
Thank you. Before I pass it on, Francois or Becky, did you have another story? Short ones.
I want just to join what you were talking about, the socks, and you about how Daddy can break the rules, but in a wonderful way. And I remember we had a meeting, was a long time ago. We had our meeting at the meeting room, actually. It was in front of the Peace, Tower of Peace, I don't know, in a very small room. There were RCOs, few NCOs, were 10, maybe 10 Brahmins, and there was a big agenda that evening. And Daddy came, and the two Daddies, the three Daddies. It's going to be very important. And the meeting starts, it's 8 o'clock, and suddenly we start talking about the tomatoes, the price of the tomatoes in the market. And we spent the whole evening talking about tomatoes, potatoes, the market. So there was the rule of the world, sitting with NCOs and RCOs,
Sorry, who was
talking about
rulers of the world.
Yeah, talking about the price of the tomatoes. I liked it very much because when we went out, we laughed. And we said, listen, we had a big agenda. What have we done tonight? But I think it was extremely important, at least for me.
Yeah.
Because I was saying my sweet fight with Daddy Junkie is a bit like breaking the rules. But it's on the level that she teaches, not with words, but on another level. You know how to link the head and the heart, which we are not very good in that. Because she teaches, I would say, God's system. We come with our logic, and Daddy has his own logic.
Yeah.
It doesn't work exactly in the same way, you know. It's like left brain and the right brain. We have to learn to marry the two, to join the two. And that's why things like speaking about tomatoes for a whole evening, this helps me very much to understand there's feeling, there's also intellect.
Yeah.
But if you use always the intellect, you never will deal with tomatoes, with socks, with the feeling of the people. And that's the main thing. And all the arguments I had with Daddy was, you know, like, you want to rule, you never have authority, you won't get authority. You know, if you put pressure, you are a spiritual dictator, but you are not a spiritual leader. Yeah. And to become a leader, you need spiritual authority. Mm-hmm. And the authority, don't ask for it.
What?
Don't ask for it.
For
authority.
Authority.
Only the people will give you respect and love. Mm-hmm. If you get respect and love, then you have authority. Yeah. So that's the whole way around. You know, like, it's not because you are knowledgeful or you got so much knowledge that you are wise. Mm-hmm. You are not wise, you have knowledge, but when do you apply it? When you are embodiment of it? And all our stories is to relate how a daddy with knowledge has become wise. And every aspect of her life is an example. Yeah. And that's why we found that's magic, but it's in our hands as well. But we have to understand what Luciana was saying. She can break the rules, she plays with it, but she's wise. So she don't break rules, she just understands the rules. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference.
Our sister has joined us. She'll have to give her own introduction. One short story?
Я хотела поделиться бесконтактным опытом. У меня нет истории. Я не живу в центре. Но тот замечательный бесконтактный опыт, который дает Дади, об этом нельзя сказать. И первый опыт — это то дришти, когда я была совсем маленькая, и это дришти дало мне возможность мгновенно узнать, что это Бог. Второй опыт. Дади сказала: никогда не создавайте мысли трудно и невозможно. И у меня было чувство, что я получила вдохновение, что я получила благословение на всю жизнь. И с тех пор прошло 14 лет. Я никогда не создавала мысль, это трудно или невозможно. Это огромная сила, которую я чувствую, идет от Бхава.
Om Shanti, I think you can understand everything. So, yeah, the word drishti. Sister's name is Allah, and she would like just to share, because she does not stay in the center, and she feels that your contact with Dadi was sort of subtle contact through drishti and through her vibrations. And what Daddy gave her through that subtle support, subtle sustenance, the feeling that there is nothing in her life which is impossible. Although she did not communicate to Daddy directly, but just through her drishti, just through these vibrations. And she says that for 14 years already, I have never been creating even a single thought in my Brahmin life, in Brahmin efforts, that something is not possible, something is not real. And this is due to Daddy's sustenance.
И это нельзя назвать историей. Мы каждый раз слышим маленькие уроки Дади. И опять же, однажды в самом начале Дади сказала «пхок». Если вы поймете, что такое пхок, то вы будете мыть тарелочку и после этого пить эту воду. Потому что это лекарство, потому что это чудо, это сила. И я опять это приняла как благословение. И с тех пор пхок является действительно моим лекарством. И не только моим. Я им лечу других.
And also one thing about bhog, offering bhog to Baba and accepting bhog, it was a very small example, but still I remember it even now that Daddy said that you should have such a devotional feeling for bhog, that it is sacred food offered to God, that even if you wash your dish, you should drink that water actually. You should not, throw it away. So that was just words, but and also that it will become a medicine for you. And she says that this is this attitude to bhog, to this food offered to Baba, even now is helping me. And this is the only medicine that I use whenever there is a problem.
И еще один бесконтактный опыт. Однажды мне было очень-очень трудно, и в это время я представила Дади. И я вдруг ощутила, что Дади одела мне на шею гирлянду из этого качества покоя. И было такое чувство, что теперь оно мое.
I'm showing time also. Just last experience that once I had some problem, and again it was as if a subtle sustenance, not through direct communication, but as if I felt that Daddy is standing in front of me and putting a garland of a virtue, that exact virtue that I needed, putting that garland over my neck. And as soon as I felt that my problem was solved.
I'm just looking at the time. I'm so sorry, but maybe we do this a second time. Becky, did you have any last stories to tell? Thank you.
I never had any spiritual name because I was kind of ashamed to use it, but it was Daddy Janki who said, "You're all-rounder," and I didn't know what's the meaning of that. I thought she was commenting about my body, because unlike Lashana, she's very slim before, but I never was small. And I said, "What is all-rounder?" It's not so very nice. And then when I started reading Burley and beginning to pay attention, then I understood. And then that's also what she told me. As I am a mother to you, you'll have to be a mother for everyone. And I think this is, I keep on resisting that internally, but I think that's what Daddy is expecting all of us. You who are there, who are students, have to be world mothers in the army of world mothers.
Yes. I was just listening to these stories and thinking that there's such a picture that's emerging from this. Here's our world spiritual university, and there's such discipline and such a protocol, it's such a culture for transformation, and yet what is the aim of it all? What's the product of it all? I'm thinking of two things that I've seen Dadi do. In front of a large audience, I've seen her openly declare that she is not a Brahmakumari. She's not a Brahmakumari. What she's about and what her spiritual path is all about would never be something to limit herself down to a label or a title. I'm a Brahmakumari. But like the story with the Muslim brother, her whole intention is just to be the best human being that she can be. And at this point in time, it's feminine principles, the heart as well as the head, the motherly qualities, which are needed by the world. And that's what she's providing through the example of her life, like all the Dadis actually. And a last story that I could share to that extent was a story that I heard when she first came to London. The immigrations officer was very suspicious. She came with one tiny little suitcase, which, as the story goes, she would still travel with only one tiny little suitcase, hardly any possessions to her name, traveling all over the world. But anyway, he was suspicious of her, and he said, "What exactly do you want to do here?" And she apparently said, "I just came here to smile." And he stamped it. Let her go. So wonderful, great souls, and yet the lessons are so easy, aren't they? So thank you very much to the panelists, and apologies to some of the people in the audience that I would have liked to hear from, but this is how time got managed. Probably I didn't do it as well as I needed to. Possibly another session, an optional meeting during the day, so that we can get as much material as possible for this grand year of the two kinds of celebrations going on. So again, thank you very much, and maybe thank you to our panelists.